Alright, now that we finished installing the cabinet doors on the face of our cabinet, which I have to admit went pretty fast, now we're going to install the doors on the side of the trailer. So I've got some prefab doors here that I purchased online from Vintage Trailer, and let me show you what I've got, what we're going to do, and some steps that we're going to take along the way to get these things on and installed and looking good. So these are the doors that I purchased, and I think they're about a 26 by 36, somewhere in there, and I can get you a measurement if you'd like. This is the first one that we're going to install. Right now it's face down. There is a left and right, so a driver and passenger side, and we want the door handle facing towards the rear of the trailer, so it'll open this way. We don't want it open the front way. Just in case, you know, it ever tries to blow open down the road. And to tell which is left and right, as you can see, these little weep holes here at the bottom are drains, so when the water comes down, that's where it drains out. So this is the right side of the trailer, so that's the passenger side, and that makes this the driver's side. So the first thing that we're going to do is, when we install this, is typically the beauty ring, like on windows of RVs, they would fasten from the inside. There would be a channel on the inside here that the screws would fasten into, but these type of doors fasten from the outside, so they have holes drilled on the outside of the ring here, 3 on each side, 2 top and 2 on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of holes here near the corners, because as this draws in, the corners might be out just a little bit, and we don't want any water getting in there. So we're going to go ahead and tap a couple more holes around the 4 corners, and that'll help attach that to the trailer, suck it in once we get the butyl tape on here and keep it from leaking. So that's step number 1, is we're going to go ahead and pre-drill some holes. Then we're going to fit it onto the trailer and shim it up and get it in place. Then we'll remove the door, and then we will prep the side of the trailer and get butyl tape on here, put it in place, and then we'll get this fastened around before we do the trim ring on the inside. So let's go ahead and get some holes drilled and get this thing in place. So I'm just going to randomly choose where I want these holes kind of evenly spaced, and use a marker here and just kind of eyeball where I think I want these. Yeah, I think that's going to work. So no rocket science to it. Perfect. Then we'll just take a drill. Got my drill bit all set up, and we'll just go ahead and tap some holes in here, and that'll help attach it to the side of the trailer. Perfect. Now we're ready to stick that on the side of the trailer, get it in place, and get things shimmed up so we know where we want to install it. Then we'll take it out, prep the side of the trailer, butyl tape around our edges, and get it installed. Alright, so we're just going to set it in place, put a little piece of wood here, clamp it, take a look from the inside, see how much we have to shim this up, and then once we make our shims, we'll set it at the bottom, put the door back in place, make sure it's where we want it. Then we'll take everything apart and we'll get the outside of the trailer. There's a plastic film on top of our Filon that we need to get peeled back, and once we do that, then we could put butyl tape on here, pre-drill some holes, and fasten that to the side. Go on the inside and do some beauty ring. Now it fits kind of loose, so I don't want it falling out on me when I go to put this in. So we're just going to kind of lightly clamp that so it doesn't have a tendency to want to fall out. We'll go inside and see if we're level and see how much we need to shim it. Looks good. So looking at it from the inside, right now it's resting totally on the bottom here of the cutout, and that's not something that we want. And then we have a little bit of a gap here on the side, just a little bit over 1/4 of an inch on each side. And then we've got a nice gap here on the top. So what we're going to do is raise this up. I've got about almost a 5/8 inch of a gap here. So we're going to raise this up about 1/4 to maybe 5/16 of an inch on the bottom, put our shim here, and then set it back in place. Make sure everything looks nice and level so it's not crooked. And once I'm happy with that, then we'll take the door out. We'll put some butyl tape around the outside edge, put it back in place, and then we can get it fastened. And then we can see how this thing opens and closes before we put the beauty trim on the inside to hide the gap and close in this seam. So that's our next step. Let's get some shims on there, and then we'll set the door back in place and see what it looks like. So all I'm using for a shim is a couple pieces of 1/2 inch, which is just slightly shorter than a 1/2 inch, so it's about the right size or the right height. So I've just got these taped in place. We're going to set our door back in there, check the gap on the top, and if I'm happy with it, we'll take it out, we'll get butyl tape, peel back the plastic, we'll get that fastened on. Okay, well, these sticks were just a little bit too high, and so I swapped it out. I found some oak trim here that I cut a piece. We'll put it here on the bottom, tape it in place, set the door on there, and I've got a pretty good even gap all the way around, and so I'm happy with that. So now we'll take the door out, we'll get the butyl tape on, and then we'll prep the outside, put everything back in place, make sure it's right position side by side, and then we can get that thing fastened on. I think it's going to look pretty cool. So I've marked the outside of the trim here. That tells me where or how far back I need to trim this little bit of plastic off here. So we'll get this trimmed back. We'll get some butyl tape on that door and we'll put it back in place, and we'll pre-drill and get that fastened. Looking forward to that. Okay, now that we have the side of the trailer prepped, we're going to put some butyl tape on the outside of our door, and we'll get it in place, pre-drill a couple holes, fasten it temporarily, and make sure everything's lined up. Make sure our beauty ring inside fits and looks good. Then we'll permanently fasten this to the side, and we will call that done. I'm going to start my butyl tape here on the bottom and work my way around. And we'll overlap it here on the bottom where I started, and it looks good. Awesome. Now we can get this thing in place. Now we'll fit the door in place and go back inside, make sure that we've got a good gap around the whole thing, nice and even, and then we will fasten a couple screws in, make sure it's in place, beauty ring fits, and then we will go ahead and pre-drill and get all the screws in so we can get this door fastened on. So I'm liking that from the inside. So let's go ahead and attach this. And for this I'm using 3/4 inch truss head. I think these are number 8s. And that should give me plenty of bite in there without going through to the inside. So I'm going to put 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, make sure my ring fits, everything looks good, and then we'll fasten everything on. not going to suck these in tight yet. I just want to make sure that everything looks good on the inside before I go around, and then we'll tighten everything up. Alright, let's take a look on the inside. Put the beauty ring up there and make sure it fits. And then we can call that good. Okay, so our beauty trim is just kind of setting in place right now. It's not fastened down, obviously. I do need to drill some holes. There are some screws that came with the package, and they are painted blackhead screws, so all I have to do is pre-drill some holes around here, and that will attach to the front here, but it covers up any gaps, and I think it looks pretty nice. We'll make sure that our seam is closed over here, and yeah, I think that's going to look pretty. So we're going to go ahead and fasten this door in place. I'm liking the looks of it, and it works for me. So let's get those screws in there, and that door will be permanently attached. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill all of my holes. Then I'll go back and put the screws in, and then one by one, kind of alternating like you would do a wheel fastening to the car. Alternate and make sure everything's pushing out real good, and hopefully we see some butyl tape pushing out, and that part will be done. So let's get those attached. Okay, let's put some screws to it. Alright, now with all of our screws attached, I've got butyl tape easing out around the edge, so we'll let that do its thing. And then later on we'll come back with a handheld, and we'll just kind of hand tighten those to make sure it's pretty tight. But the most important thing is, now that we've got it installed, does the door work? So hopefully it's not binding or anything. Let's give it a try. Door's nice and tight. It's got a nice seal around the edge here on the inside. That should keep the water out. Nice and clean. Yeah, I'm liking that. Nice and straight, sturdy. Looks like it's sealing pretty good. Oh yeah. And it looks good on the side. So we're going to call that a success. Now there's also a rain gutter that was supplied with the door, and it snaps over, and the holes are pre-drilled to line up with these holes. So when I get ready to install, we'll remove this screw, these two screws, and that screw. We'll put this in place, and then we'll attach everything. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we caulk around the outside here, and there's a couple of recommendations that some YouTubers gave me not to use silicone, which I think is a good idea. So I have to go back and look at what it is they said to use. So if you know what I should use on the outside of this to caulk it, leave a comment down below, because I want to find the product that a couple of people recommended that some RV manufacturers use, and what they say I should use. So I'm going to take the YouTuber's recommendation, because I know that there's a lot smarter people out there than me. Meh, meh. Now, before we can install the beauty ring or the trim ring, we need to drill some holes, and then we can put that inside, line it up, and get it fastened onto the side. So let me go ahead and go around and drill a few holes, and we'll get it installed. Alright, now with all the holes drilled, now we can put it in place and get it fastened on the inside, and that door will be done. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get this in place. The first thing we want to do is line up this edge right here. Make sure that our seam looks good. Pre-drill a couple of little holes. We'll get these two fastened. Alright, so the trim is installed and looking good. So, let me give you a shot of what it looks like and tell you something else I found that we're going to have to do. So the trim is installed and we use blackhead screws all the way around, and it's looking pretty smart. So the door opens and closes pretty nice. The only thing is our lock doesn't go all the way over. And the only reason is, if you can see in here, so what I'm going to have to do is we're going to have to notch a little hole right here so our lock can go all the way in and out. So right now it goes about halfway. So once we notch that, then that'll be good to go. Other than that, I think it looks grand. So from this side, looking from the inside out, looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that. Well, we just have one more door to install. So we're going to call this a wrap for this video. We got the doors installed on the face of our cabinets, and we also got one door installed on the left side of the trailer and just one more to go on the right side. So it's basically going to be the same way that we did this one. So I'm going to stall that one. No need to put a video up for that because, well, you already seen how it's done. So hopefully you like that and give me a thumbs up on that. Also, the caulking around the outside, don't forget to leave a comment. Give me some recommendations what I should use. So we're getting closer. Alright, well, if you haven't already, give the video a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and also hit the bell notification for the next and up and coming videos. Until then, I hope you stay tuned.